Guys, in this video, we're gonna break down the maximum allowable offer formula. Hey guys, in this video, we're gonna break down the maximum allowable offer formula. And this formula is a very, very basic formula. And us real estate investors, wholesalers, we use this formula to help calculate the offer, all right? And it's actually really, really basic. Most of the time this is done in our head or on a piece of paper, a napkin, something simple. It's very, very simple, but a lot of people confuse it. So my goal today is just to simplify this formula and show you guys how to make the perfect offer. You do so by using this formula. And this formula is really built to reduce your risk. And I'll explain that as we go. So let's jump on in, guys. Maximum allowable offer formula. It's the name of the game. What is the formula? And the formula looks like this, all right? It is gonna be the MAO, and that's gonna be equal to the ARV times our discount rate minus repairs minus our fee, okay? So the MAO is the maximum allowable offer. That's what we are going to be solving for in this scenario, all right, in this equation. So how do we solve for the MAO? We use the ARV, which is the after repair value. We multiply it by our discount rate, and then we should take off our repairs and or a fee. Okay, so we start with the after repair value. And we're only gonna essentially take the fee right here, right? If we're wholesaling it. If we're not wholesaling it, then we won't need the fee. Okay, so really the equation could look like this right here, without the wholesale fee, assuming we were gonna not wholesale it, all right? So ARV is where we're gonna start, and this is probably where most people get the most confused, all right? Because we're not looking at this subject property as it sits today, with a boarded up window and a broken down car in the driveway and, you know, landscaping that needs a bunch of work, whatever the issue is with the house, right? Those are gonna be what we're gonna refer to as the repairs, okay? Now also the repairs, you can judge a house on a low end amount of repairs or a high end amount of repairs, and that's also gonna be affected in our after repair value, okay? So if we're looking at after repair values of comps, and that's how we find our after repair value, we run comps and look at comparable properties, but if we're looking, you know, at properties that are at the highest end of the market with the highest materials, can we get ours there? Probably, but the cost of repairs is gonna be a lot more than if we're looking for middle of the line comps or low end comps for rental type properties. So be aware that when you are looking at your after repair value, or you are finding it by running your comps, that you are also determining your level of repairs to get to that level. Very, very important. So back to the formula. We're solving for MAO, we start with ARV, and ARV is nothing more than finding comps that have sold recently close by and that are very similar to your subject property, and figuring out how you get your property to look like that, right? And then you figure out the number, you average them together. It's very simple, in fact, but you figure out your after repair value, and that's where you start. You don't start with today's value. You start with, hey, if I were to put some money, some love, some time, some work, some effort into fixing this property up, what would it sell for? Not today, what would it? Okay, so once we get beyond the fact that we're looking into a future value of this property, okay, we're gonna do so by running comps, then we're gonna factor in a discount rate and repairs. Okay, so the next step in this formula will be our discount rate. So the discount rate is typically gonna be around 70%, and here's why. The cost of selling a property is typically somewhere around 8 or 10%. All right, you're gonna have seller concessions, you're gonna have closing costs, you're going to have agent sales commissions typically, you're going to have prorations, you're gonna have holding costs. It's very expensive to sell a piece of property. It's typically at least 6%, typically it's closer to 10%. So what we're doing is we're gonna take our after repair value and we're gonna multiply it by a discount rate. And that discount rate is going to take into effect the cost to sell and also the expected profit. So why not just put 0.7 there? And the reason is because this equation is pretty consistent except for the discount rate. Reason being is it's a sliding scale in my opinion. 0.7 is a great place to start. Take off 10% for your cost to sell, and at 0.7, that's 30%, take 10 off. There's still 20% left for you to make a profit. Now, in today's market, it's kind of difficult to get offers accepted at that number, so you may have to move that from 0.7 to 0.75 or even up to 0.8, which is going to deteriorate your profit margins, but it's also going to get you a higher MAO on the other side of this equation, which will allow you to offer more. Therefore, you should hopefully get more deals accepted or more offers accepted. So the discount rate in my market, it could be anywhere from 0.2 to 0.8, okay? The default is 0.7, but again, I don't put that on my equation because I want you to be comfortable sliding the scale. And if it's an undesirable area or an area that you're not interested really in buying or investing in, slide that scale down to 0.5 or 0.4 and make a really discounted offer, guys. If you get a good deal in a bad area, you should still be able to sell it, right? But in better areas or more competitive markets, you're gonna need to slide that scale up. All right, next we're gonna take off our repairs, guys. This is the cost of fix. Now keep in mind though, that the repairs that you choose here is going to be affected by the number. The repairs that you are selecting really are the, let's say the cause and effect kind of the after repair value that you chose earlier, okay? So when we're choosing an after repair value on a property, that's gonna say, hey, if we're gonna try to get this to 300K, it's gonna probably need 60 grand. Could we get it rented for 20? Sure, but if we put 20 in it, the ARV is not gonna be 300 like in my previous scenario. So the after repair value is going to determine your repairs. And here's the other thing, the repairs that you put in are gonna determine your after repair value. So make sure that you are consistent with the after repair value and the repairs. They're gonna go hand in hand, all right? If one of those goes down, the other one's most likely gonna go down too, all right? And then last but not least, guys, if we are wholesaling this property, we're gonna also subtract out a fee. So let's slow down. MAO equals max allowable offer. That's what we're gonna be solving for. We do so by taking our ARV and we're gonna multiply it by our discount rate. And then we're gonna subtract our repairs. And then if we're wholesaling it, we're gonna subtract a fee, okay? And the fee would be subtracted as it's coming off this side of the equation over here, right? So on the other side of the equation, way over there, it's gonna bring that number down. So as a wholesaler, we're gonna be buying properties at a great price, and we're gonna be selling them at good prices. We're gonna leave meat on the bone. But in order to do that, we have to take our offer down an additional 5, 10, maybe 20 or 30,000, depending on the size of the deal. All right, so just keep this stuff in mind that you don't always have to bring the fee in. When I'm making offers on a rental property or a fix and flip, I'm typically using this equation right here. I don't necessarily need the fee. All right, I don't need it because I'm not wholesaling. But if I'm planning on wholesaling, I'm gonna wanna keep that fee involved. So let's do a real world scenario, guys, a really quick scenario of how we're gonna use this equation. And then last but not least, I wanna emphasize the max here. Max is the most that we're willing to pay. So when we solve for an MAO, that's not really the offer we make. It's below that number. We're gonna allow ourselves to get to that number maybe in a few days, weeks, could be months even. But we're never gonna make the offer we solve for. Instead, we're gonna discount that number even more. And I'm gonna explain that in a minute here. All right, let's go and let's open up a new sketch here. And let's say that, again, we're doing MAO equals ARV times our discount rate minus repairs minus a fee if we're wholesaling. And in this scenario, I don't even think that I need the fee. So let's say that we have an ARV, and that is, $200,000, 200K ARV, all right? We found that by running comps. In fact, we found a couple neighbor houses on the street that were similar size, had sold very recently, and were basically very much like this one in bed and bath count. And they had sold for 200K. This is an example, but this would be an example of how we would run this formula. And let's say in order to get our subject property to get to 200K, we would need to put 40,000 in the property. So our repairs are going to equal 40K. Pardon my bad handwriting. All right. So what we would do is we would take this 200K and we would times it by 0.7, assuming that the discount rate in the area made sense for 0.7. In this scenario, it will. So 0.7 of 200 would be 60K off, so that'd be 140,000. So we'd be at 140K. But then we have to subtract out this 40K right here and the repairs. Okay? So next we would have 140 minus 40, and that's going to essentially equal $100,000. So in this scenario where our ARV was 200, we used a 0.7 discount rate. 200 times 0.7 is 140. We then subtracted out 40,000 in repairs. 140 minus 40 puts us at 100K right here, guys. 100K would be our max allowable offer, okay? Now, if I go back to this here, again, we had just talked about this. This is the max offer, the most that we'd be willing to pay. So let's assume that we solve this equation and our MAO equaled 100K, like the scenario I just showed you, okay? My offer was probably gonna be somewhere around 85 or 90,000. Even though I know that I'm willing to get up to 100,000. The reason is everybody's gonna wanna negotiate a little bit. And if you come in and say, my best offer, or my first offer is my best offer, take it or leave it, nobody's gonna wanna do business with you, right? But if you come in and say, hey, I can pay you 90, and they counter and they say, hey, we need to be at 120. Well, let's try to meet in the middle, but let's maybe try to get the middle closer to us. So it may take a couple weeks, and again, it may take a couple months, but you're always gonna be willing to come up a little bit, right? Maybe you can come up 2,000 or 3,000 every time that you call and follow up. And the goal would be to get them to meet you in the middle, essentially, at your max allowable offer. Now, here's the beautiful thing about offering less than the max allowable offer. If they accept your offer, you've just padded your repairs and or increased your discount rate, which essentially relates to profits. So always make your offers low. Use a max allowable offer formula to reduce your risk. All right, run your comps, get your ARV, multiply it by a discount rate, typically at least 20 to 30%. You can go more if you like. Figure out the cost of repairs depending on your ARV. Again, those two talk to each other, guys. And then if you're wholesaling, take the fee out. And that's it, guys. This is how real estate investors make their offers. I sit down with sellers weekly and explain this to them, educate them on how us investors make our offers, why I actually try to include them in this process, and we'll run this together. It's such a simple formula. And then when we get to the number, and the number's only 100,000, for example, we get to that number, they're not shocked and blown away and wanting to throw me out of the house. They see why. We've justified this offer at this point as being a fair offer. Yes, it's gonna be a low offer. That's the name of the game, let's be honest. But it's also going to be a fair offer. Guys, I hope you learned a little thing or two about a max allowable offer formulas and how to make offers. And really the whole purpose of making offers and using this formula is to make them low so we can make a profit, but also reduce our risk as investors. That's the whole thing, is if we can reduce our risk in this real estate game, which we can, then it gets fun and we can easily make money and not have the downside losses. If you like this video, guys, hit the like button, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. Signing off.